Hello Parkview Church electric guitarists and tech team members. My name is John Maggs for those of you who haven't met me. And also a quick welcome to anyone who's looking for a general overview of the Zoom G5 modeling pedal. You may have noticed on Sunday morning that we've made a switch over from using onstage amplification to using the modeler to interface with the audio system. And without getting into the pros and cons of one system versus the other, we do just want to give a quick overview of the modeler to help you to know more quickly how to use it and reduce the learning curve during rehearsal time. There's also a bass modeler on the stage, and we'll have a training video for that product as well to help just get everything integrated and reduce any frustration that you may run into. What we'll do is I'll spend most of my time with a close-up just of the front panel, going through the functions there. As well, we'll take a look at the rear panel quickly and see what functions are on there. And if you have any questions after watching this video, you can email me directly at john@stringnoise.com. And as well, you can find me on a Sunday morning, or just find anyone on team who's had some time on the pedal and is familiar with it. And let's start with the back actually, and then we'll take a look at the front panel. Okay, taking a look at the back panel here from left to right, we have our input for our guitar, passive and active. If you are using stomp boxes in front of this pedal, then set it to active. If you are going directly in, you can set it to passive unless your guitar has active pickups, meaning it has a battery in it. We have our outputs here, headphones, and then left and right if we are going to an amplifier or direct box. In this case, we are using the DI out, the balanced out. The ground and lift you can leave alone unless you are given instructions from the audio person. And pre and post basically indicates where the signal leaves in the chain. So in this case, we want it set to post so that our effects are included in the signal that gets sent out of the balanced out. So that should be post. Control in is for the optional foot switch, which we can use either a pedal to control volume or a foot switch for tap tempo. I think we'll be able to have both available on a Sunday morning for you to decide how you'd like to use that best. We have USB out. I should mention the software that allows you to edit your patches and things like that is available for free on the Zoom website, and I'll maybe include that as a link there. The power, eco and on, it doesn't really matter at this point. Eco just means that after 11 hours the unit shuts off by itself. So unless we're having like an all-night service, you don't have to worry about anything, but either eco or on will be fine. And then obviously power supply. Okay, so that's a back panel. Okay, taking a look at the front panel, we've got 4 foot switches which operate these 4 banks. In these 4 banks we can store effects or amp simulations. So the one thing that's a little different about the G5 is that your amplifier is included in one of these banks. So you can kind of think of it as an effect. But when you go in to edit it, you can see that there are a lot more parameters available to edit than on, say, a tube screamer, because you have gain and you have your EQ and that sort of thing. As you scroll through, you can see that each of these shifts over 1. And I don't know how well that animation shows up in the video, but basically as I scroll, everything's shifting to the side here. And I can eventually get to the end for a total of 9 banks. The last bank, right now at least, is set for the Z pedal. The interesting thing about the Z pedal is that it has a vertical function, but it also has horizontal functions there, and that can be assigned to different parameters. In this case right now we've got it assigned just as an output volume level. Actually, I think it's set as an input volume level. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back to the beginning of what I've got set up here. Basically, each bank then has 3 editing wheels as well as a page button and a type button. What this allows you to do, the type button, if I were to just press it now, I can cycle through some different amplifiers that are available to me. The amplifier doesn't have to be in patch 1. I could have it anywhere in the chain. So if I want to put effects ahead of the amp or behind the amp, I can do that. If I press page, I then can see the different parameters that are editable. So I have gain, I have tube, I have level, and then treble, mid, bass, presence, and then I can adjust the cabinet. for the cabinet modeling. Okay. And then, like I said, as I press type, I can cycle through the different amps that are available. So right now it's set to simulate a Vox combo amp. In the second patch bay here, I have reverb. I can select different reverbs. Again, if I keep going, eventually I'll get out of the reverbs and into some other section of effects. They've grouped all the effects together in overdrives and distortions, reverbs, delays, modulations, that sort of thing, pedal effects. So if you kind of go back and forth near whatever you're at, so a tube screamer, I'm going to find other distortion effects near there. But as I keep going, eventually I'll make it into another bank of effects or another section of effects, so that I can change them all. I could have 3 different distortion effects here if I wanted. Okay, and then here we have a delay. Let's just check out the page for the delay. So I have time, I have feedback, I have mix, and then as I page to the next page, I've got a high damper and a ping pong versus mono switch. So as I change that, it just changes what it is. Okay. Up on the top here, like I said, we have the scroll buttons so that we can scroll between stomp boxes or amps as well. Patch select, let's come back to that for a second. There's a tap tempo, which in this case we've got an external switch hooked up for our tap tempo. So for our delay effect, for instance right now, if I go to delay, we can see we have it set at a dotted eighth delay, which is the ever popular delay setting for churches these days. And then I can use the tap tempo to follow my tempo, but you can change that to a straight eighth delay or whatever the case may be, or an actual delay time. Okay, so that's the tap tempo there. Rhythm, this does have some pre-programmed rhythms that you can play along with as well. It has a looper that will sync to the rhythms. Not going to spend a lot of time on that because it's not necessarily relevant to what we're doing. Store and swap allows you to change patches. So what is a patch? A patch is a group of these 9 banks that we have. So if you remember, we scroll over and we have a total of 9 banks, which incidentally we can scroll through using pedals 1 and 2 at the same time, or 3 and 4. Don't get confused by the fact that it has bank for 1 and 2 and bank for 2 and 3 up and down. That's for banking through patches. I don't know why they did it that way, but to scroll through once you're in the patch and you've got your bank of 9 effects, 9 stomp boxes plus an amp or whatever the case may be, you can use 3 and 4 together to go that way, and once you get to the end, it won't go anymore. Okay. And then I can go 1 and 2 to go back the other way. It'll show you how many stomp boxes are left in either direction and whether or not you can go in the other direction. But pretty soon you'll have a very good feel for where all your stuff is stored and which way you want to go. Okay, so the patch is basically, each patch is one of these banks of 9. So if I want to access the patches, I can hold number 4. And basically then it'll be like patch 1, patch 2, patch 3, patch 4, and I can select it. And then I exit out of that, and I've got a whole new bank of effects here. So I'll show you how that's set up for Parkview folks towards the end of the video, and try and keep it more general at this point. Store and swap basically allows you to move patches around. There's 99 banks, I believe, for patches. There's like 150 effects that can be put in any order in the chain here, and then saved as a patch. So you can see that there's a lot of possibilities for different things. Okay, global. When we click on global, we get to some general settings. This is actually important for Sunday morning. If the audio technician tells us the signal is too hot, the overall signal, well, we need to go to global and turn down the master level. Or turn it up, or whatever they need. So the master level is found under the global setting. You can change the signal path from either right to left or left to right, or you can just rearrange your stomp boxes manually if you want to do that. And then as well, there's some things related to like the what the output is set to, which in this case it's set direct, which is what we're doing. We're going direct into a PA. We're not going to an amplifier or anything like that. And then you have your LCD contrast. Total. If I click on total, so now that I'm in a patch and I've got these effects lined up, and virtually they kind of continue on down that way as I scroll and I get to them. If I go to total, basically it shows me now my 9 effects here, and I can I can turn the knob to change the order. So I've just swapped the tube screamer and the delay, and I can swap it back by twisting. So you can kind of move everything around really easily in that way. As well, I can edit the patch name as I page through. It has the patch level, so you can make sure your patches are all even, and you can assign the foot switch. So in this case, it's assigned as a tap tempo. You can also assign the foot switch to do individual parameters on different effects. Okay, so then I can exit out of total. Once I've arranged my effects the way I want them to be, I can exit out of total. And you'll see here as I go through, select effect type. There's just nothing in this bank. So as I can start going through, there's some compressors and noise gates near the beginning in there. I can select an effect. Everything auto saves, so you don't have to worry about saving. Okay, so basically that's the front panel from the point of view of how these banks work. There is a tuner. You can hold down number 3 for the tuner. The tuner is set to mute. You can also set it to bypass, but right now it is set to mute your signal. And then hold number 4, or just press number 4 to go home. And then you can access the patches by holding number 4. We'll get to that in a second. There is a boost as well, which is actually really handy for performance situations. So basically the boost right now is set to about 10 o'clock to try and make it so that there isn't a huge difference, but there is a possibility of 16 dB. So certainly get feedback from the audio tech to find out if the difference, your strumming chords and then your lead line boost, is the sound balanced the way they need it to be balanced. Okay. And let's talk about the patches for a second. So this is going to be a little more specific to how things are set up for Parkview guitarists. So a little more specific now to our situation. Basically what I've done is I've set up a patch for each of the guitarists on our team, and I can bank through. I can use this knob here to go to the next bank. So there's 3 patches per bank. So in bank 1, I've got Mike and Warren and myself, and if I go to bank 2, we'll have additional guitarists in there as well, and we can move these around. They don't have to be the way they are. It doesn't really matter. And if Mike would like 2 patches, well then we can do that. We can set you up Mike Wong 1 and Mike Wong 2 or 3 or 4 because we've got plenty to work with, that's for sure. And that way you can sort of mess with different ones and come up with something that you like. On a Sunday morning, it's not too practical to switch between patches unless you have at least 30 seconds or so to kind of dance around, because basically what you have to do, I'm just going to hold this to go home. So let's say I'm in the John Max patch. I'm going to hold this to access the patches, and I want to go to the Mike Wong patch. So I'm going to go there, and then I have to hold this to get back out, and now I'm in the Mike Wong patch. Well, it looks exactly the same. Why is that? Well, that's because what I did is I set up a basic sort of starting point for you guys to be able to edit effects and do that. So all of the patches at this point look the same. They're all set up with a Vox AC30 basically type of simulation, because that's something I see a lot on stages these days at churches. But you're welcome to come in and change that to a Fender or whatever you want. Here's what I'd recommend: having just set to a clean sound and then stacking your stomp boxes on top of that. If you wanted, you could have clean sound Vox, and then you could have another patch that's another amp entirely, so that I shouldn't say patch, another module that's another amp entirely. So it could be a Marshall, or maybe you like the Vox but you want to have a clean and a dirty. So you can do that, and then in which case you would just kind of have to maybe roll your foot to switch one off and the other one on. So it's like you're changing channels, I suppose. That's just kind of an idea. I don't know if how practical that would be, but it seems like it would work. So basically each one is set with the Vox. You can change it as you want. I've got a hall reverb on there, and then we can just talk to the audio guy to know how the reverb is sounding on their end. A tube screamer. There are other distortions available. There's not a lot of overdrive, to tell you the truth, which is why you might want to end up simulating it with an amp, but certainly a tube screamer is reputable. And then just like a regular delay, a digital delay, if you want to add another delay so that you have one for your dotted eighth delay and you have a one just for like leads that's kind of more generic or whatever the case may be, you can do that. You can add them in because there's plenty of room to add other patches, and then in that total screen you can switch them all around, so your delays are next to each other, or maybe they're not, or whatever you want to do. Okay, I put in a tremolo just because I find I hear that a lot, but you're welcome to use it or not use it. And then as you scroll through, you can see the rest of these banks are empty. So there's 3 empty banks to put effects in, and then the pedal at the end is set for volume, but if you don't think you're going to use that, you can use that for something else as well. You can set it for a wah effect. You could have a volume and a wah, and depending on which one is kind of set, will determine the function of the zoom pedal. Okay. Now this is a little bit stream of thought because I'm still just myself trying to get familiar with the product, but I'll just try to think if there's anything else I want to mention right away. Hopefully that gives you a really good, or at least an initial kind of idea of how those things work. Oh, I will just quickly mention here we have the bank up and bank down and bank up. So that works when you hold and you go to the patches. I can now bank using my feet to the next bank, that sort of thing, to select different patches. So you can see the number changing there from bank 1 to bank 2. And then again I have to hold to go home. And then with the scrolling, which I'm using my finger for, if you need to be doing that live, then you can use 3 and 4 to go that way, 1 and 2 to go back, as I mentioned. The reverb and the amp, once it's set, you can kind of just put those off screen and leave another module open for an effect that you can see, because I really don't see a reason for having to have your reverb and your amp, if that's going to be kind of a global setting. It doesn't really need to sit on the screen for you to look at, because it's not necessarily going to change unless, like I said, you're going to set up 2 amps. Okay. So any questions, again, you can email me, find me on a Sunday morning. I would suggest that Parkview guys, that we maybe take turns taking the thing home and spending some time on it. And basically what you can do is you can access your patch, you can edit your particular patch, right? You just use the foot switch to select it. You can edit your patch however you want, as long as it's usable and practical and it's going to work. And like I said, it auto-saves. So once you've edited your patch, you can just exit out and it's fine. You can use the software as well. I will have a little laptop available there with USB, and you can edit these things in the software. It's a little easier from the point of view. It's a bit more visual. It's kind of laggy though, but you can do it fairly easily with the interface that we have here. So we'll see what you're comfortable with. All right. Well, I hope that was helpful, guys. And for those of you who maybe watched and aren't Parkview folks, please feel free to visit the Parkview Church website, www.parkviewchurch.ca, to see what we're all about. And thanks for watching.